Right. So we just do a quick introduction. I will start with the man of the moment, and then Tunde and I can then introduce ourselves. Okay. So CJ, over to you if you just introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Obasi, and I'm a filmmaker from Nigeria. Oh, you need
Awesome.
more?
Tunde.
All right. My name is
Uh,
Babatunde. Okay. Yeah, I think we need more.
Okay. Um, okay, I'll do it again. Hi, my name is Obasi, and I'm a filmmaker from Nigeria. And my feature film is Mami Wata.
All right.
awesome. And we'll be talking about Mami Wata today, okay? Tunde, if you introduce yourself and then I'll go
Yes,
after
my
you.
name is Babatunde Onikoyi. I research and lecture in the Department of Film, University of Regina, and yeah, I write about film. I write a lot of essays about film. I was former member of the jury board of the Africa International Film Festival in Lagos, Nigeria, which is annually organized by Chioma Udi. And right now I am a member of the board. Yeah, and right now I'm the member of the board of the Institute of Research Studies in University of Regina, apart from teaching in the Department of Film. Thank you.
Awesome. So I am Ezinne Ezepue. I am a lecturer of film at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, even though currently I am doing a postdoctoral research on African storytelling here in Cologne, Germany. So today we'll be talking to the filmmaker CJ about his very recent critically acclaimed film, Mami Wata. And then we just talk to you generally about your filmmaking, and then we'll go straight into the film itself. So yes, Tunde, you have the very first question, which is very, very perfect opening. So if you kick off with that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ezinne. CJ, it's, as I said, it is wonderful to see you. What I would like to ask first is, do you have a background, or did you have a background in film studies or theater, or did you just dabble into it? Perhaps you actually have another discipline that you went to, that you studied in the university.
I mean, yes, I do. I do have a different background as far as educationally. I studied computer science from I'm a lion like Ezinne. So but in terms of artistically, I would say I've always been a filmmaker, at least at heart. Even as far back as I can remember, as far back as I was maybe 4, 5, or even 6, I would say, because I would, all my play was around filmmaking or revolved around filmmaking or storytelling, whether it was with my friends or drawing comics of films that I liked or reenacting sequences from films that I liked with my friends and peers. So it was always, I would say, I was always surrounded by film in this sense. But academically, I studied computer science.
Okay. Before Ezinne asks a question, please just tell me what university and from what year to what year?
University of Nigeria.
Okay.
2000. Well, graduated 2009. So yeah,
Okay.
the
You graduated.
2009 2010 set.
Okay. So you entered what year?
I haven't thought about this I may have to give you an answer. I think
All right.
2016, probably 16, probably 16. Yeah.
Okay, that was when you graduated.
No, that's when I entered.
Okay, 2006.
16.
16?
Oh, you entered.
When did you
Oh, sorry.
graduate?
2006. Yeah, sorry. My God. 2006.
I
And then 2009, 2010 was
Okay, wonderful.
the
That makes sense.
graduation year.
All right. No problem. Thank you.
I haven't answered this question like ever. So
I know.
Well,
I had to think about it. Because I did my service in 2010. So yeah. that would be about right.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Computer science, that's very disconnected from what you're doing right now. Is there any, I remember some people who have said like them studying computer, whatever what's called the discipline they did in their undergraduate has always influenced what they do. Is there any sort of influence from your computer science background into the sort of films you make, or the sort of films you always wanted to make? Is there any sort of connection, any sort of marriage?
It's a good question, but not directly. But I would say that before I chose computer science, first I wanted to study physics because I really like physics. Growing up, just the mechanics of it, and the idea of theories and how the universe, try to explain how the universe works, and all of that. I've always found fascinating. Unfortunately, I wasn't quite as good in physics as I thought I was. Like when it came to like the practical, like everyday people who live and breathe physics, I wasn't anywhere near at that level. So the next thing for me to do was, computer science, because I was always like naturally inclined to computers. I would have studied film if I knew that there was a film school in Jos. I didn't know there was a film school in Jos. I would have applied for Jos if I had known. So I guess computer science was the natural choice to make in the light of not knowing that I could study film in Jos, as well as wanting a course that felt natural to me, because what I really wanted to do was to be a filmmaker. So in my head, computer science would just be like a breeze for me. It wouldn't really feel like I was in school, because really what I wanted to do was film.
Right. Okay, so let's keep going straight into the film gradually, but I wanted to talk to you about surreal 16 collectives. I somehow have always felt like I always placed you as a contemporary of Nnedi Okorafor, and then when you did Hello Rain, I felt like, okay, there is also that connection. And I haven't seen Hello Rain. I've seen like trailers and all that, but I know Hello Moto, which sort of is an adaptation of Hello Moto, is inspired by Hello Moto. So like I wanted to know what is it? Where would you want to be placed? Do you want to be seen as a surrealistic filmmaker? I mean, consider all the sort of films you make, from Hello Moto to Juju Stories and Juju itself, and now Mami Wata as well. Where would you want to be placed? I know Nnedi is more like a futurist. She calls herself African futurist. And then I see these surreal 16 collectives, and then you're making this sort of surrealistic films as well. I wanted to know where we should categorize as a Nigerian filmmaker. And if you talk a little bit about surreal 16 collective as well, yes, that would be nice.
Okay, so let me begin with the Surreal 16 collective. It was a collective we formed in 2016 between me, Abba Makama, and Michael Omonua. And at the time, this was shortly after Abba had made his first feature, and I had made my second, Old Town, and Mike was like in the process of making his first. But before then, Mike had made like several short films. He has made, probably he's the guy that I know who has made the most short films. I know, right? But we were at the time where we were really struggling to find our place in the Nollywood industry. And if to be quite frank, we couldn't find our place in the Nollywood industry, not for the lack of trying, but simply because we wanted to also keep our identity and our unique way of making films. So there really wasn't room for that. And the core practitioners showed us that there was no room for that, and in very strong terms. So we had to do our own thing, long and short, and that's how we birthed Surreal 16 Collective. And what that came because we were inspired by different cinematic movements from all around the world, from the Hong Kong New Wave to the Hollywood New Wave to Nouveau Vague in France to German Expressionism to Dogma 95, even more so Dogma 95, because it was well, first, it was the most recent of all these cinematic movements, and also because the people who started it, like the Thomas Vinterbergs and the Lars von Triers, all those guys, they were like guys, they were just young guys like us, essentially, who are trying to navigate the Danish film industry as well, just like we were trying to navigate the Nigerian film industry. And films were made a certain way and funded a certain way, prior to Dogma 95. And so people had an expectation of what Danish cinema was supposed to look like prior to Dogma 95. And so when these guys came and formed their collective, they created a manifesto that gave them guidelines that would, I guess, go to the core of how they wanted to make films so that they could reinvent the DNA of what people had associated with Danish cinema prior to that time. So that was really like, I guess, the foundation that we needed to form the collective, and we created our own manifesto as well, in line with what the guys at Dogma 95 did. And with our manifesto, we wanted to go at the core of what is identified as Nollywood film. What are the core identifiers of Nollywood films? And so we tried to outline that and say we're not going to do that. And I guess the motivation wasn't really to even like come at Nollywood. It wasn't even about that. It was just a way of saying that we can have other kinds of expression from Nigeria as well. That doesn't have to be this one thing, and we all don't have to be put in one box. And in our mind, in our innocent mind, we thought we were doing the industry a favor by showing that Nigeria as a country can offer different palettes. Like if you go to a restaurant that that only has one thing on the menu, it doesn't matter how great that one meal is. At some point, you're going to want something else, right? So we just like felt like Nigeria as a country, we've come to a point where we've been offering this one thing, but we are a country of diverse people, diverse talents. I mean, we see that in our literature, we see that in our music. Why not in our cinema? So it just didn't make sense for us to have this one thing. And with Surrey 16, we certainly tried to evangelize the idea of different kinds of expressions. But all we came we faced a lot of challenges. But as you can see, where the industry now was in 2016 is not where it is now in 2023. And I'm not going to take all the credit. We're not going to take all the credit, but you just have to look at before Surrey 16 and after, and just connect the dots.
And where is the team now? Are you guys still together? Are you expanding? Do you have new members?
Oh yeah, definitely not new members, but we have several collaborators. And yes, we are definitely expanding. I mean, since then, we've made Judy Stories. We made a short film before Judy Stories called Visions. That was also like an anthology that the three of us directed together. And individually, our films have carried on the manifesto with Mami Wata literally has the Surrey 16 logo on it. The Lost Okoroshi, the same thing, also has the Surrey 16 stamp on it. Michael's feature film, The Man Who Cuts Tattoos, also has so we've been individually as well as collectively, our work has, carried on the message, so to speak. But even more so, we're expanding in other ways. So now we have a film festival called the S16 Film Festival. And it's going to be in its third edition this year in December, from December 7th to the 10th. And it's, it keeps growing. This is the third edition, and each year it gets bigger and bigger. But ultimately, we want to expand to, archiving, to an institution where, that really pushes for the cinema culture to be celebrated and encouraged in Nigeria and beyond.
I don't exactly remember the Lost of Courage, but I think I've seen it. I've seen the film, but I don't remember the story and quite clearly now. But then I see Juju's story.
It was about a guy who woke up as a masquerade, long and short.
Yeah. That's true. That's so it's something about stamping an identity, more like not like stamping an identity, but speaking of an identity, or for people who tend to like look into like do like a Western gaze. It's more like trying to redirect this gaze into, is that what you're trying to do? Like tell the people that beyond all we see that is very Western, that is also something inside of us, something that identity that we can look into to really reassess our identity as a people. Is that what you're doing? Because I see that speaking through in Mami Wata.
Absolutely. We're just trying to say that, our stories have value, just the same way that, every other, I guess, so-called civilization, we find value in their storytelling a lot of times, even more than our stories. But we have value, and it shouldn't be more or less of this. We have equal value. And so the one thing I love about cinema, or one of the things that made me fall in love with cinema, is the ability to, you can be the most political person, you can be the most, the person with the most ideals, the most philosophy. But if you can't show that visually, it's all lost.
Mhm.
And cinema as a tool has the ability to reflect all of those, ideas, philosophies, politics, whatever. You can really put that in a frame, in an image. And that's one of the things that I love about film. So rather than be a politician, which I think I would be a terrible one at, why not just stick to what I love, film, and just, showcase my ideas through that form.
Mm.
Okay, I'm going to press the pause button here on my side and then let Tunde go on. Tunde, please, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'll just move to the next question. Well, I think Ezinne has actually explored this one, but I'll just go over it again. You seem to be fascinated by, magical and fantastic realism, which developed as a literary approach among writers. But now the approach has gained prominence in film art and also among filmmakers. Why the preference for this approach, which goes beyond simple narrative and aesthetic approaches?
Well, it's all about point of view, right? So what there are two layers to that, to with which I can approach that question. So the first aspect would be the term magical realism, right? Just the term itself, magic realism or magical realism. Um, it's a strong terminology, but it's not a terminology that necessarily translates into our African mythos, or even specifically our West African or Nigerian mythos. Because when you talk about, for example, you talk about Igbo cosmology or Yoruba tradition, the Ifa culture. These are very, very, very specific things, right? Very specific belief systems, and they transcend whatever box you might want to describe as far as magic. Because magic is a big word, but it's also very specific as well. It speaks of the use of a certain craft to achieve something that is otherwise impossible. So you can't really use that definition to, box our culture, our mythology, our cosmology, our pantheons, which transcend all of those things, right? So I'm very wary of using words like that. But at the same time, I understand how language works and how, you need something to describe something. So I do use it, but sparingly. The other layer to that question is the fact that there's always been a way that our culture, our spirituality has been looked at since the invention of let me not go as far as saying the invention of time, since the invention of whether books or film or art or whatever, our culture has been looked at in a certain light. And I'm not going to go as far as, saying, oh, it's a white man problem, because I think that's too much of a cop out. We ourselves, Africans, we've also been guilty of this in terms of how we see ourselves, in terms of how we look at ourselves, right? So it's not just a them problem, it's also an us problem. So I would rather start with the me problem first. And I was guilty as well in terms of, because I was programmed to see myself a certain way. But until I worked on myself and kind of deprogrammed myself, then I began to see out myself in a true light. And now I want to show that true light in film. So that is my journey as far as spirituality, magical realism, whatever you want to call it. Or for me, it's just a question of this is how I see us. This is how I see our identity. This is how I see who we are, and I want to reflect that in cinema. What if it comes across as the supernatural or magical realism or whatever? I just think it's just one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is these are core identifiers as to who we are, right? And I haven't seen that as much as we've seen the other aspects of the world and their identifiers. And I want to be a part of the people who show that.
Well, that's the point. Okay, that is actually the point. So it's just a device, really. It's an approach. Okay. And what I think people like Michael Wonsu, what's his name now? Our father writer now, Ben Okri, have actually done is to domesticate that term and domesticate the approach. I mean, I'm sure you must have read The Famished Road, which comes in trilogy, Songs of Enchantment and the Mission.
I haven't read that, but I read The Famished Road. Yeah.
Okay, yes, all of them actually comes in, they come as a trilogy. Okay, I think The Famished Road, Songs of Enchantment, and the Mission at the Shrine. And as you say, it particularly reflects or illustrates the African worldview, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, for me, it's a way of just, there's really, of course, so many people might, have a problem with the term, but I mean, people like you. But then what
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I just feel that I don't have a problem with it. For example, when Nnedi kicks against the use of Afrofuturism, I understand where she's coming from, and I'm with her on that. Because when you say Afrofuturism, you're speaking of a people's experience, the Black American experience, where that comes from, and them trying to ascend that experience. So she doesn't want her work to be boxed in with that because her work is doing something different, right? So I get that. But magical realism is, for me, it's a limiting word. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same problem as a word that doesn't work. It's just a word that is just a small part of who we are. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. That's my only issue with that, not the word itself.
It's all right. I'm sure as time goes on, we will find a way to replace the word with something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Juju is a good replacement.
Okay, we will wait till then.
because the word
I remember you said so.
Because Juju is so ambiguous, right?
Yes, it is. That's the problem with the word.
In the root of it, but it can be anything. That's the beauty of it, and that's our tradition, right?
True.
When you go from the east to the west to the north, it's different kinds of things. So so like if I was to like submit a word, it would be Juju, and it's also powerful because that's also another word that has been demonized,
Yeah. Sure. And talking about demonization, actually, that's one thing I loved about Mami Wata. So I'm sorry, we're going straight into Mami Wata. It felt like I've always wondered why certain films or certain ideologies, especially from amongst us Africans, will always seem to demonize things that have always been a part of us or part of our past. Which some of us do not have understanding of. Some people are curious about it, and when their curiosity leads them to explore them, they see the demonization rather than simply exploration for them to like draw their conclusion. And that's one thing I loved about Mami Wata, the non-demonization of this water goddess. Even though we watch TVs and we see pastors casting out Mami Wata spirit and knowing that, I grew up knowing that it's not a thing that we should be proud of or anything that a young lady should be told she's Mami Wata. So if anyone calls Mami Wata, that is a problem already. So this is one thing I loved about the film. So going straight into that film, one thing I want to ask about is the choice of language, the Pidgin English. I wanted to know, was it like a deliberate choice? Why did you choose Pidgin English?
Yeah, it was definitely a deliberate choice from the very beginning because I mean I've always been, let's say, a student. I mean, I've always been a student of culture, tradition, all of it. But even more specifically, I've always been a student of Mami Wata in a way. Like I've always studied everything ever since I was young. Everything I could lay my hands on in regards to Mami Wata, even studying like the regional versions of Mami Wata, for example, Yemoja or Oshun, or in the Igbo land we have Idemiri, and all of that. So like I've always been fascinated by this. Just the idea of another world that lives, that is, in the water or in the ocean or whatever. And I've never really thought it was the way people think of it, like as impossible. I've never seen it this way. I've always seen that there was a possibility. In fact, I would be quick to believe in the world under the ocean than in Mars. Like I would believe that first before I believe in Mars, because the water has always been here. The water was here before even, let's say, whether you want to believe in the biblical creation, it says that the earth was formed from the waters and by dividing the waters from the waters. So like the water has always been a part of this existence since time immemorial. So it's not too far-fetched to think that there are creatures that have existed before time, at least time as we know it, that live in the water. So that's just my logical thinking about it. But I've always been like fascinated by these belief systems, let me call it that. But when I began to seriously think, this started in around March 2016, when I had this crazy vision of Mami Wata beckoning a young lady towards the ocean. And after this encounter or this vision or whatever it is, I don't know exactly it's not a dream for sure. That much I can tell you, because I was fully awake. Um, but after this, I knew that it was time for me to make a feature about Mami Wata. And prior to that, I wasn't really thinking seriously about making. In fact, I would even go as far as saying I wasn't even thinking about making a film about Mami Wata. I don't know what I was thinking about, because this was just a year after I made Old Town. So, and Old Town didn't quite work out the way I thought it was going to work, because it's a very personal. Old Town is a very personal film, and I made Old Town because, I mean, I grew up in Owerri. I was born and raised in Owerri, and I was literally watching Owerri change before my eyes, right? And I felt like if I don't make a film about this town and how it felt like growing up in this town, I'm going to lose that chance forever. Once, I think that there was a new government at the time, and he was changing everything. He was like, you know, kicking people out. He even kicked out my parents from their place. Like, he was just, everything was changing. And so I wanted to capture that moment. And so I felt the desperation to make Old Town. But after I made Old Town, and he did a bunch of festivals and all of that, but it didn't quite resonate. People felt like it was too art house and too arty or whatever. And again, I make a joke and say that it felt like I would compare it to like if Steven Spielberg made Fablemans. Fablemans, the movie he made about his childhood. I make the joke and say that it would be like Steven Spielberg making Fablemans as his second feature. No one would care. The only reason why people care Fablemans is because it's Steven Spielberg. I mean, he's had this long, illustrious career. So maybe in that sense, Old Town should have been the film I made, like maybe as my 10th film or something. But again, like I said, I felt the desperation and I wanted to capture, the town at the time. But after that, making the film, and it didn't really do anything beyond the festivals and all of that, a few awards here and there, I was kind of stuck in terms of like career-wise, not stuck creatively, because I always had like scripts and ideas and things I written down. It could have been anything. Anything literally could have been my next film other than Mami Wata until I had that vision. And I just felt this need to make it. And so that desire stayed with me from that March 2016 till I eventually made the film and premiered it at Sundance 2023. So that was a 7-year journey of just needing to keep pushing and seeing it through to the end. But yeah, sorry. Now I think I've deviated.
Yeah, actually, it's fine. But I like your guy that you're going through this direction, because now it's bringing me to that question of when I started with demonization. Why did you not? Why did you choose a different path that seemed to like celebrate rather than? rather than demonize like what we see in our
Yeah,
societies.
I'll still come with that. I mean, but just to answer your question about the pigeon, because I know I went all the way
Yes.
far. So let me not go too far from that. So in terms of the pigeon, when that idea came to me, I just knew it had to be pigeon, just from all of the, I guess, years and years of research and understanding about this belief system. Because I realized if I made it an Igbo film, like an Igbo language film, I would have to make it about Idemili or about what's the name of this river goddess from Oguta? Can't remember. But there's Obuide. I would have to make it
Oh,
about her.
okay.
Like so, then it would become a specific story. It would become a different story. It would become a story about Obuide and the belief system around that, or the story about Idemiri and the belief system around that. If I made it about Oshun, it would be a different film. It would be a film about Oshun and the experiences and the people around that. Or if I made it about Yemoja, the same thing. So, but I mean, if I made it in Yoruba language, sorry. So, just from an instinctive level, I felt that if with Pigeon, it would ground it in West Africa, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell a West African story because I knew that Mami Wata doesn't just belong. It's not like Yemoja that is Yoruba. It's not like Oguide or Idemili that is Igbo. If you go to Ivory Coast, you go to Senegal, you go to Liberia, Sierra Leone, they all recognize and know Mami Wata, right? If you go to Benin, all of these places. So that for me was something. And as far as I could think of, I don't know any deity that has this crossover appeal through the region. And that for me was just a very strong feeling that I needed to explore. And so that's really like where that the idea to make it in Pidgin. But even more so, I knew that if I was going to make it in Pidgin, I couldn't make it, say, in Nigerian Pidgin, for example. Like Nigerians watch the film, they can understand it, but in a lot of parts, they also need subtitles. And I'm sure you guys had that experience where you would need like subtitles to understand what they said in certain parts. And that was deliberate because I didn't want Nigerians to go, it's Nigerian Pidgin. I also didn't want Ghanaians to go, oh, it's Ghanaian Pidgin, or Sierra Leoneans or Liberians. I wanted it to be like a kind of stylized Pidgin in a way. Like I took a lot of leeway in how I constructed the Pidgin and how they said things, how they put words together. So a lot of people who watch it, they miss the point and go like, but this is not how we talk. But that's the point. It's literally deliberately constructed that way. But yes, that would be the answer to why I felt the need for Pidgin. And just historically too. Like when you talk of Mami Wata, this is a deity that became popular. I mean, obviously before the transatlantic slavery, but mainly that through the transatlantic slavery and through the commerce in that region, especially with the coming of the Portuguese, the French, the English, this belief system of Mami Wata was able to travel across the region. And also because of the language that was spoken then, because we had a form of Pidgin and Creole. So, which is why you go to other parts of West Africa, they don't call it Pidgin, they call it Creole. Because you have other languages that are like fused into that. It's not like our own that sounds very English. Theirs is maybe like a combination of maybe English and Portuguese, or English and French, or Spanish. So it sounds a little different from ours, but it's still a form of Pidgin as far as classifications go, right? So that I felt was a language that could connect the history and the culture and just the region together.
Ah, true. I actually had that feeling to while watching the film, what kind of pigeon is this actually? Yeah, so I felt that. But yeah, one more question before we go back to Tunde. Earlier Tunde and I were reading this film and we read it like a metaphor for Nigeria. So now you're saying it's a West African story, but somehow I wanted to ask if you are using this film to reflect the intergenerational conflict. Like in Nigeria, we have like 3 generations at war in terms of fighting, especially when it comes to political, economic war as well, but social as well. Is that what you're trying to do? Was it like a metaphor mirroring this conflict or this thing that is going on in Nigeria?
Yeah, I mean, it's in Nigeria, it's in other parts of West Africa. People just don't want to let go, right? Power. It's across the region. So you have all of that. In fact, the entire film has all of these very real life stakes. As much as the film operates on a spiritual, symbolic level, it also operates on very literal, um, like just literal themes that, like you said, like you talked about the generation. Even that one is a bit allegorical. You have like the literal things that are happening in the film. For example, when Jasper shows up and he says that he comes from a conflict region, he was a rebel. That's a very real thing. We know what that is. Like he's not speaking like some kind of hidden mysterious language. Like he's telling you literally this is what's happened, and we are still dealing with that here today, right? So
Yeah.
all of the mystic aspect of it, the what you might call the occult aspect of it, it's all intertwined with the very literal aspects of it. Because I felt that at the end of the day, even if I'm making a supernatural, surreal, whatever, I want to ground it in real things. I want it to be grounded. I want it to be on earth,
Of course.
and that's also one of the reasons why we never get to see Mami Wata. I don't, no spoilers, but we never really get to see her. And then, because I wanted it, because once you show her, it becomes a fantasy film, and it's a fantasy film. But I wanted a fantasy film that is grounded in life and in reality. And at the end of the day, at the end of the final scene, tells you exactly that, because we see this glorious thing, but we also see Priska, who is still on Earth, and that's the person that the camera stays with.
Yes, I was going to say, I love that point where Priska was projecting herself on that mermaid spirit. Like, it was beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
All right,
And I love
Tunde.
the imagination too. I love, for me, I love the fact that, we have you to imagine. It's a way of imagining for a society that is at war with itself. It's a way of imagining for, for what you expect and what you anticipate for a society that is intensely combative. I mean, post-colonial Africa, post-colonial Nigeria, it's a state of a turmoil now. And when you see films like this, it's like saying, all right, fine, I mean, these are projections for our real world, but we hope our real world will eventually amount to this. But that's just the way of putting it.
I
We're so
believe
far
art is
away.
powerful. I
It
believe
is.
art is
It is.
powerful. It can,
Yeah.
because it stays with you. It stays with you. And then imagine if several of us are creating art that is aspirational and not just one person. Imagine what that can do to the mind and to the subconscious. Even if it doesn't happen now, but for the next generation.
Okay, so I have two questions on the narrative, which is based on the narrative, and I'll just take the first one. Now it's actually about the world of the world of the metaphysical now in Mami Wata. Now, if the character of the mermaid, as in the metaphysical character of Mami Wata, in your Mami Wata, takes her people, worshippers and subjects, and if possible, their devotees away. Devotees away. It is suggested from your story that they are not, taken away to experience, spiritual death, in another world. A good example is the case of Zinwe, Mama Ife's daughter. How do you link this with the reality of the material world?
Of the what? Sorry, I didn't get
our material world.
Okay, it's a fantastic question. So it is definitely. I mean, that is it's a clear metaphor for death. But I also wanted to explore the idea of death and how it is perceived from the point of view of tradition, from the point of view of this very specific traditional way, right? Because we know what death is. If you've lost anyone, you know how heart-wrenching that is. But some of the comfort you get is that they've gone to a better place. They've gone to heaven. That's the thing you hold on to as like comfort. They've gone to heaven, right? And one day you're going to meet them or something, depending, I don't know about how other religions, but in Christianity, that's the basic idea of how heaven works, right? And I wanted to explore how heaven works for a community that knows and worships Mami Wata. And so that became like I guess it was, for me, it was even more important that that becomes like the opening scene. Because like you get what I mean? Like just when you think about it from that point of view, like we're exploring the idea of death and heaven. It was important for me to introduce this world to you with death and with the prospect of, or at least with the idea of how they see heaven,
afterlife.
or the afterlife. So that was a very clear metaphor. But I like the idea of being able to look at it from both sides, to look at it as, yes, she could be dead, or no, it's not really dead. She just went to a better place. Like, or even more specifically, she returned back to where she came from, which is the exact phrasing that Mama Efe uses. Like she returns, they are returning back to where they come from. So like that kind of makes you rethink of, oh, if somebody came from the water, then it's only natural that they will return to the water, right? So that just changes your perspective about how you the constructs that we've been shackled with as far as death and as far as what we think is heaven and all of those things. It just makes you rethink and to start looking, at least that my hope, start looking at our traditional belief systems about heaven in a different way. Because I think there's so many mysteries to the ocean. Like even scientifically speaking, nobody knows. Like, is it they say that only about a tenth of the ocean has been explored? That's nothing. That's crazy if you think about it. Like only a tenth of the ocean has been explored. That's crazy. What lies beyond the 10%, right? That we don't know about, right? What lies beyond that? And the fact that 70% of the world is made up of water. 70% of the world. So as big as we think the world is, we only get to live in 30%
30%.
of it. That's crazy. So all of these thoughts just make me want to visually try to explore some things, some ideas. And even if nobody is going there, or people just be like, oh, it's too mysterious. But why not? That's what cinema does. And certainly our forefathers weren't too shy to have a strong opinion about the mysterious world. They were never shy. They had very strong opinions about what the metaphysical world was and what the physical world was. In Igbo cosmology, it's very clear. Alamo, Allah, the earth itself, and Alamo, the world beyond. They were very clear about what it was. It was never something they debated about. Like they in their head, they understood that. So if I'm going to make a movie from that point of view, I'm going to have to be very clear about what that is. You see? And so that for me was just what I was exploring, just the reality of that world and the point of view from which I was telling the story from.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ezinne?
Okay, I thought you said you had two questions. You already asked both?
Yeah, and then I'm actually considering time.
Oh,
I
yeah,
could
yeah.
just,
Okay. So I do, talking about visual choices and all of those. I kind of brings me to the visual choices we made for Mami Wata. First and foremost, is black and white, and then there's very tasteful cinematography and all of that. How did you decide? How did you come? What are the things that informed your decisions? All of this certain critical decisions you had to make, like color of the black and white, for instance, the choice of cinematography and all of these things that come together. What is it? I'm sure every filmmaker will be asking, how did you come by that? Apparently, black and white is one of the things that makes Mami Wata pop. Like
Yeah,
if we had color, I don't know.
It's one of the most questions I ask, and I say, first thing I always say is, that's how I received it. That's how I received it. Like I ever since that episode in March 2016, I just wasn't able to see it any other way. But that was the foundation of me saying, okay, I'm making this film in black and white. It took other journeys, other experiences to understand why it had to be black and white.
Mhm.
And at first I would write when I was writing the script or the earlier drafts of the script, it seemed more like a revenge thriller film. In fact, if you watch some of the interviews I did, or not interviews, or maybe things that were written about the film in 2016 or 17, it was literally described as a revenge thriller. That's because that's what that was where my frame of mind is. And for sure, it does have elements of thriller, but it's certainly not what you would consider as a revenge thriller. It has, because it transcends that. And in order for me to find that path, for it to transcend that genre description of revenge thriller, I had to find the meaning behind what I was trying to make. Why did it have to be black and white, other than any other thing? And why was this black and white so strong that I couldn't see it any other way except this black and white? And then I realized there were two reasons for that. The first reason was because that's how I came into film. I came into film from watching films on our black and white TV. And so you can't separate my love for film from how I was introduced to film. So in many ways, my external journey of trying to get the film made was never possible until I had made that internal journey to self. So that in a way was what allowed me to find the aesthetic of the film, this journey to self, this inner work that took a few years to get through. And then the other thing was, once I had done the inner work, I realized that, okay, then it's really about centering the dark skin. Because if I'm going back to myself, that means I have to make a film about us going back to ourselves, ourselves, the way we are in our true nature, dark skin, a celebration of that, right? If I show that in color, it's no longer dark skin because it becomes juxtaposed with every other color. But if I make the dark skin the center of the image, then it takes precedence over every other thing, which is why even at night scenes, the dark skin look amazing, which is something you never see, especially even more difficult to pull off in black and white. To have dark skin contrasted against the night and still look good is just never done. So those were some of the rules that we broke, in trying to push this aesthetic, in trying to even, in a lot of ways, politicize the dark skin. Because there's also a lot of imagery that is associated with dark skin and how it's supposed to be filmed and things like that. And we wanted to push the boundaries of that and to say that we can center the dark skin and we can make it look good and we can glorify the dark skin and in the center of an African story, rooted in mythology, spirituality, and all of those things can be celebrated all at once in the same image.
Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I'll do one last question and then I'll let you battle with the rest of the time. I know you still have a lot of questions, but really, CJ, like recently there has been growing interest in folklore adaptations and all that, from what Netflix did with the anthology they have on Netflix. So His House, I don't know if you've seen His House, made in the UK, to Nani from the US, and Anikoyi in Nigeria, and the rest of those. Now, I am wondering how this is impacting on the authenticity of African narratives. How do you think, going back to folklore and all that, what does it offer us as people telling stories?
Yeah, we just have to be careful. We just have to be careful. That's all I'll say. This is who we are, and we have to be careful how we curate that. I'm using the word curate specifically because whatever we put out is there till the end of time. So we have to be careful what we put out there, images associated with us. I know that I can only speak for myself in terms of like what I want to put out and the images that I want to see. I know that with Mami Wata, I know the inner work I did on myself, both spiritually, emotionally, to be able to even feel comfortable to make a film like that. Just even to the point of like going to make it in Benin Republic, meeting with the elders, where Voodoo is. Like we shot it during the Voodoo festivals, and Voodoo is where I don't know if you know this, but one of the deities venerated in Voodoo is Mami Wata. It's one of there are about 4 main deities venerated in Voodoo. Mami Wata is at the upper echelon of that. So to make the film at really at the in the heart of it, in the cradle of it, for me was even more important than the film itself, because it had to be done from an authentic place. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to do it. So not everybody wants to want to be this authentic for sure. But for me, it's important. And I think the reason why the movie was this successful is because I did this way. I don't think it would have been successful otherwise. Because there are many people who have tried to make Mami Wata films, and how did that go? Just think about it. Some of them didn't even get to finish. And a lot of people told me, but you know that there's a history of Mami. And I was like, but mine is going to be different. And I was very confident about it because I knew what I wanted to say. Like even when we were there in Benin and we would meet the elders, and I would literally explain to them what I was trying to do. Like we got everybody's blessing. Everybody's blessing. Like even we are filming, we are shooting a film, we're shooting a scene. You see a forest in the scene, that's a real sacred forest. It's not like, there are shrines right next to the frame, like real shrines. There's shrines to Mami Wata, there's shrines to the night deity, there's shrines to all kinds. We are in the real heart of the thing, where it really is, where it really exists. So there's a level of authenticity that I demand of myself when I'm doing this. And I think that's what's going to elevate us in the eyes of the world when we do it from that place. Again, like I said, I'm not asking everybody to go and meet elders and in voodoo culture and all of that, but you have to come. It has to start from here. It has to start from the heart. The motivation can't just be, oh, it's the cool thing now, it's the trendy thing now. Otherwise, what you just end up making is superficial stuff, and it will show. It will always show.
Wow, that's very interesting, very discussive. Thank you. Now, I have a couple of questions on film festivals, and I'll just pose 3 to you. Okay, I'll just pose 3 to you because we have barely less than 6 minutes to go now. Okay, let's discuss the curatorial events of your work at film festivals. Your film has featured prominently at both local and global film festivals. Can you say something about the approach of programming of Mami Wata in curatorial terms, which it has benefited from immensely across, let's say, maybe 3? Now, 3, most especially. Now, the second 3 festivals.
No, it's been many, way more than 3.
Yeah, I know. I'm only asking you to pitch it within 3.
Okay.
Talking about many festivals might be too much. Then the second one is, what have the discursive tendencies of the curatorial arrangements done to your work and your reputation as an artist? And then the last one, do you think your cinematic corpus, that is all of them now, as they continue to feature in Western and international film festivals, can open up dialogue between African and Afro-American, Afro-British, Afro-Canadian, etc.? And if so, how do you think this is possible? I'm so sorry, there are 3.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that in how many minutes, but I'll try my best.
Let's see what we'll do.
So with the festivals, the festivals became a necessity when I didn't have a home for my films in Nigeria. So I realized quickly, like really quickly, because I started with Afrif, and then after Afrif, we were like everywhere. So, but immediately I realized that festivals was not just a place for my films to be shown, but it was a place where my work could be introduced to new audiences. And by building audiences, you become you're taken seriously in the global film space as a filmmaker. If you play a film in a renowned festival and it's a hit in that festival, you're immediately penned down by the festival programmers. They want to see your next work. And the next festival programmer wants to program you to their other festival. And before you know it, you're traveling all over the world, right? That's literally how it works. So festivals are very key to introducing the work of a filmmaker, especially an independent filmmaker, to audiences around the world. It's very key to that. On a commercial level, it also works because the more audiences you're introduced to, the more likelihood of distributors picking up your film and wanting to show it to more people within that region or within that place where the film has been shown. It's not, it doesn't always work like that, but the likelihood is higher because the distributors attend these festivals, especially the renowned ones, and they watch the audience reaction to that. And so they want to see that, work with other groups of people within that same space. So just from a commercial point of view, it makes your film more viable as far as sales and commercial viability in general. The other thing is, sorry, I think the third one.
Yeah, okay. Have you dealt with the second one? Another thing we can do is, we could just arrange for him to answer this question by sending
3 festivals.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Well,
that
after
actually
Sundance,
where the discussions were most intense.
That's tough because
and I think how that is impacting you as a creative, right?
Yeah, and the whole diaspora discussion. I think
that's the last one.
I think with Mami Wata, I really came into that discussion because Mami Wata transcends. Again, it's a movie that transcends its specific. It transcends Nigeria, it transcends West Africa. I mean, I was in Brazil for the Latin American premiere, and people were crying. I was walking on the street, and elderly women would walk up to me crying that they saw the movie. So like that's a whole different level of connecting with audiences. And I want to keep making work like this, like work that connects all of us. A lot of, let's say Brazil, for example, a lot of Brazilians, in their minds, they are Nigerians or Beninois, in their minds, but they've never been to Nigeria, they've never been to Nigeria or Benin Republic before. But in their minds, they are. So imagine when you show them a film like Mami Wata, and they suddenly feel how they are connected. Imagine what that does to them living in a society where they don't really have a sense of belonging, because they deal with a lot of racial discriminations in that place. So this is just like one example, right? But really, I feel that all of us, whether Africans or diaspora, we are dealing with an identity crisis. And one way for us to tackle or at least explore that identity crisis is through cinema. And cinema that is rooted in the specificity of our diverse culture, traditions, spirituality, all of these things. And I'm not saying that everybody has to make a spiritual film in order for us to feel connected, but that's my path to that. That's my path to exploring that, our diversity, as well as our unified stories.
Thank you.
Did I try?
Over to you, Ezinne. I think what we need to do is there are about 4 of them. So I think we might just need to mail him. Maybe when he has time, under 2-3 days, he might just answer us. Send the thing to.
Yes,
I wish we had more time, And the last thing I wanted to ask is there a way you can, now that you've met Ezinne and I know very well that we are not ghosts and we are not.
I already met Ezinne before. We already did
so
I know from way back. So
okay. So I am thinking that you might want to help us with your films. Writing about a filmmaker, we need to see more of your films, and then we might be able to do a lot of justice, on you as a person.
Well, you've seen Mami Wata now, so it's
Mami Wata is just
So I'm guessing it's Old Town and Ojuju that you need to see, right?
Oh, please, Hello Rain. I want to see Hello Rain.
Hello Rain.
Is it possible?
I can send you the link.
The idea is that now that we're academics, there is nothing we want to use the film to do except
no. I can send you the screeners. I can send
you. That would be lovely.
Old Town will have to wait though, because this is a secret off the record. I'm working on a re-edit of Old Town. In fact, that's one of the reasons I'm in France right now doing it, because I want to release. I told you the film didn't really do anything when it was released. So now that there's a new attention on me and everything, I want to rework the film and release it in a much stronger way with better edits, better sound, better everything, like polished. But it will still feel like a film I made in 2015, but just better. So So you won't see that one until I'm done with that, but you can certainly see. can certainly send you Hello Rain. But if you're in Canada, you can actually watch it on Prime. Hello Rain is on Prime.
Hello Raid.
Rain.
I don't know
Hello
if it's in
Rain.
Germany
Okay.
though. I don't know if it's in. I'm not sure it's in Germany yet. But
Okay.
maybe you just check. But I can send you the link either way.
All right, fine.
Okay,
So you're sending
thank
us three links to three
Two
films,
links.
right? Two links
links.
to films. All right, fine.
Yeah,
And
Ojuju
what's the
and
second one?
Hello Rain.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I really love to
That's
see Ojuju.
if you don't have, because it's better if it's on Prime. It's better you watch it on Prime because you will be watching the best quality. I don't know.
Okay, but
I don't know if
is
it's
Ojuju on
I think
Prime?
no, it's not on Prime. It's on Quelly
So
TV, but you have to pay.
all right, you can send me that one. I don't want to pay.
Yeah. You don't want to pay. Can
I
you
don't want
imagine?
to pay.
You don't want us to chop.
You will chop, don't worry. If you have
Oh
not
my
chopped already.
God.
Okay,
Yeah.
over to you.
But
Ezinne.
yes, before we conclude, I think what it's always nice to ask what's next. Although you've talked briefly about it, what's next for you as a filmmaker. But I read somewhere that you were working on Onikoyi. Was it like you already did? Was that Old Town or it's something you
No, that was a long time. That was supposed to be the project after Old Town.
Okay.
That was supposed to be the project, but Mami Wata took me away from that project, and I'm glad it did. You know, because you know I've grown beyond the script of Otokoto. So even if I was to revisit that world, it would be in a completely different way.
Tunde, please, do you want to go on mute? Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, it would be in a completely different way, even if I was to revisit that world, Otokoto. But no,
Right.
that's not my next project. My next project, I don't really know what my next project will be because I'm writing so many things now. So it could be picked up by, and I'm talking to like so many people. Though the one that I'm positioning as my next project is a project called La Pyramide. And it's a project set in New Orleans, Salvador, Brazil, where I was, and Dakar, Senegal. And then the other one is called Mortuary Man, and it's set in southeastern Nigeria. It's an Igbo language love story, funny enough.
Okay.
Funny enough, an Igbo language love story, but it's called Mortuary Man, so you know that there's a little thing happening underneath the love story. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for making something to Southeast I've been wanting to ask. Okay. But anyways, yes.
Yeah. So I have many things. I have many projects set in the Southeast. The problem is that I have, because I'm Igbo, I want to come correct when I'm making, and now I feel like I'm ready to do it. So that's why, after Old Town, I was like, no, let me do other stuff. When I want to make my Igbo language film, you will know I'm ready to make it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So Mami Wata is opening film for any Eastern Nigeria International Film Festival, where this will be your first film. They're in their fourth year, but this will be your first film screening there. And sadly, you won't be there. Neither will any of your cast members. How do you feel about that? We are really excited about this. Like the town is going crazy. Like Mami Wata is coming.
Oh wow, man, you're making me feel bad.
I know. No. Enugu is going crazy.
I really thought I was going to be there, but yeah. I'm billed to make these appearances in the UK for the UK release. It's been scheduled before now and all of that. But yeah, I'm excited about that really because I mean it's the East. We have to give our people the movie as well. Let them experience it and watch it in the cinema the way it's supposed to be seen.
Yes. So on behalf of them, I wanted to say a very big thank you for this. And we're looking forward to more of your projects in the future.
Thank you.